Hey guys, Sammy here. Welcome back to Everything Alpha. Today I'm going to talk about the most underrated tactical folder for edge weapon self-defense. More specifically, I'm talking about the Crawford Casper Fighting Folder, model number 6783 from Columbia River Knife and Tool. Now this knife has been featured in both my Warblade knife fighting DVD and my best-selling knife fighting book. For those of you who might be interested, I've included links down below. While there are hundreds of tactical folding knives on the market, I'm reviewing this particular knife solely from the perspective of knife fighting. This means there are very specific requirements that must be met in order for it to be considered a good fighting folder for self-defense. So let's go through the 11 requirements and see how this knife holds up. First, it needs to be concealable. A good tactical fighting folder should be convenient, concealable, and easy to carry on your person. Its size and weight should not be cumbersome if you're to carry it with you throughout the day. For example, if you're carrying it over in an EDC bag. Next is blade lock mechanism. Your tactical folder must have a solid locking mechanism that keeps the blade locked when open. This prevents an accidental closure on your fingers or hands when knife fighting. Now this knife has a steel inner frame with a liner lock system built into it, making it safe and reliable for self-defense applications. Once the knife opens, it locks into place with a positive click. So you'll see here when it opens, you can hear that positive click, liner lock system is activated. Now if you turn the knife over, you'll see some jimping over here for a positive thumb purchase on the forward part of the handle. Really comfortable. And there's also an additional feature with this knife called the Lake and Walker safety system. So when you push this lever forward, the tab over here prevents the liner from accidentally disengaging. And this is a great additional safety feature for this particular fighting folder. Next is positive weapon retention. In the knife fighting classes that I teach, I always tell my students, if you lose your knife, you lose your life. So the ability to retain your knife in the heat of a knife fight cannot be overstated. However, knife retention is not just limited to practitioner skill. The handle of the knife will often play a very important role in weapon retention. One of the best ways to ensure positive weapon retention is with a good bracing handle that will enhance the structural integrity of your grip. The length and width of the handle should also permit you to wear gloves if necessary. Now this is a Zytel handle that is virtually indestructible. It also has a hole for a lanyard. Its grip configuration has slight grooves for positive forefinger and thumb placement. You actually have to really hold this knife to appreciate just how comfortable it is in your hands. Now, when used correctly, these digit grooves combine to create an ideal bracing mechanism when the blade makes contact with a hard target or when your hands are sweaty or covered with blood, oil, sand, or dirt. The knife measures 9 1/4 inches in the open position and 5 3/8 in the closed position. The blade itself is 3 3/4 stainless steel and gray Teflon finish. Managing shock impact is another important requirement. A good bracing handle will also aid in managing the shock impact of your blade when it makes contact with a hard target, such as bone. Now remember, if your knife hits bone, which is likely, you better have a handle that will manage the force of that impact. Many people often forget that cutting the air during practice training is nothing like making actual contact with human flesh and bone. Next, we have the fist loading weapon. Now, before I get into fist loading, I also want to talk about how this can be improvised to be a makeshift weapon. Believe it or not, this can be used as an intermediate use of force weapon, such as a kubotan. When you grip the knife in the center point, you've got the bottom portion and top portions for striking. So it's incredibly powerful. So here's one of our custom-made kubotans. This wicked weapon could do a tremendous amount of damage. And if you think about it, the kubotan here is going to be just as effective as using this Crawford Casper knife, either the top or the bottom portion. So you've got yourself a secondary weapon, a secondary intermediate use weapon if need be. So let's get into the fist loading concept. One of the hidden features of the Crawford Casper knife is that you can fist load it. Now, for some people who don't know, fist loading is the process of delivering a fisted blow with the closed folder in your hand. Now, this added weight of the tactical fold in your hand significantly increases the power of conventional punching techniques. Now, the fist loading concept is very similar to punching someone with a roll of nickels in your hand. Keep in mind that fist loading will only work if your tactical folder has a minimum weight of 7 ounces. And that's just another reason why I love this knife. Next is the quick opening feature. Now, under the spontaneous and stressful conditions of a knife fight, your knife must be opened quickly and positively. Now, therefore, a good tactical fighting folder should have dual thumb studs that allow one-hand opening as well. So if I close the knife here, there's the dual stud, and you could use your thumb to open it. Now, at the same time, you should also be able to open the knife kinetically. And that just basically means that it's open with one hand with a quick flick of the wrist. Now, if you want to compare it to your traditional switchblade, which is not reliable, again, another reason why you should not use switchblades in combat, but that versus that. In terms of reliability and in terms of speed, you're gonna beat the switchblade with this bad boy. Next, we have the combo blade. Your tactical folder must have a partially serrated edge. Now, a serration is simply a sharpened recessed curve along the edge of a blade. And serrations act like teeth that will saw through tough clothing, especially leather and thick denim. The serration should also be located at the lower portion of the blade. Now, this is what comes into the tactical applications of the knife. So when you're going to, for example, slash, it's very important in the slashing action that you make contact with the lower portion of the blade first and then pull it through. So if you make contact initially with some type of fabric, like leather, denim, what have you, you're gonna saw through it. And then once you get through that, you're gonna have the remainder of the blade to get into soft tissue targets. Now, it's important to give you a word of caution. You want to avoid using a tactical folder that only has a straight edge. Believe me, if you use that type of knife, you're gonna regret it. Straight edge blades might not cut through heavy fabric like jackets. Next, we have sufficient blade length. You should be able to conceal the knife from your assailant. However, at the same time, it must be sharp and large enough to penetrate vital targets. I recommend a blade of at least 3.75 inches with an overall knife weight of approximately 7 to 10 ounces. Remember that the knife should be light enough for you to manipulate quickly and easily. Again, this Crawford Casper fighting folder checks all the boxes. Next, we have easily accessible. Your tactical folder must be easily and conveniently carried and in a position that is quickly accessible. The best carry system is a clothing or pocket clip that allows you to secure it to your waist or inside your pants pocket. Clips are either made out of plastic or metal, and they are either a point up or point down setup. For example, a point down system means the tip of the knife is pointed down when the knife is clipped to your clothing. I personally like the point down setup because it permits me to draw the knife smoothly and efficiently. The clothing clip serves two vital purposes. First, it puts the tactical folder in proximity that lets you get to it quickly. Second, when you grab your knife under the stress of a fight, your hand will have an immediate and predictable orientation. The clothing clip system is not without some risk. Keep in mind, if you can see the knife and get to it quickly, so can your adversary. Just like a police officer who must be aware of his sidearm at all times, you too must be cognizant of your tactical folder that is clipped to your clothes. Next is good metal. The type of steel you pick for your fighting knife is also very important. Essentially, you're faced with three options. You have stainless steel, carbon steel, and carbon stainless steel. Now, regardless of the type of steel you choose, you want to avoid cheap knives that use 420 steel. At a bare minimum, you should use a knife that has a rating of at least AUS 6. Essentially, you have two versions of this particular type of knife. You have the standard version, and then you have the solid black version. I particularly like this one. And it's interesting, I went to a knife show and I met Pat Crawford, super, super nice guy. And I purchased, this is a custom-made version of this knife. It's a little bit, you see the blade's a little bit thicker. See, it's got that skeletal handle. It doesn't have the dual lock system as you do right here. There's your liner lock here, and then your secondary lock here. But it does have the liner lock, but it doesn't have the secondary locking mechanism. But this guy it's just a wicked weapon, and it's just the opening speed is just fantastic. So what's the verdict? The Crawford Casper Tactical Folder, model 6783, checks all the boxes and is hands down one of the best tactical fighting folders for self-defense. And it's no wonder that it's the official fighting knife of my contemporary fighting arts system. So tell me, are you a fan of this knife? Do you own one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below.